So, let's see. Is there anybody new? I'm pretty sure I know everybody. I don't think there's anybody here who has never been to any of my events here at the Buddha Center. Or is this not the case? Is there anybody that doesn't know who I am? Oh, okay. You know what? I saw that you have the Kenoji Sangha in your titles there, so I've seen many people from that also come here. So maybe that's what threw me off. So welcome. The Buddhist Center is a great place. It's a second life. The Buddhist Center is a great virtual Sangha for those who don't have a daily Sangha that they can interact with, like most Westerners. So we do a lot of different things here. Is this like the first today, right now, the first time you've been to Buddha Center, or you met one of the co-founders, Delani? She founded this, I don't know how many years ago, with Zeno, who's a guy from France. Interesting character. And I'll give an introduction since you are new. My name is Jayantha. I'm a 36-year-old lay Buddhist disciple of the Theravada tradition. I'm not a monk, hopefully yet. That might hopefully change soon. I'm not a master. I'm not a guru or anything like that. I am a layperson on the practice of Dhamma. I've been on staff here a couple years, and I do a couple different things. A metta meditation on Thursday, Sundays, usually basics of Buddhism class, although that has been iffy lately because a lot of stuff going on. But and today we do a Dhamma talk. So if you're not new to Buddhism, you probably understand a little bit about what Dhamma talks are and how they work. Usually when a monk does a talk, they talk for however long of a period, half hour, and then there's like a question and answer period after. And usually you're asked to hold the questions until after the monk is done talking. Well, since I'm not a monk and I like discussion, it is set up the same way where I yap on for about a half hour. But feel free to comment, interact, ask questions during this period. You're not interrupting. I think this topic that I've chosen today is one I do every once in a while, and it's a little bit more interactive because it is talking not necessarily about Dhamma topics, but our experiences. The topic that I wanted to talk to is basically the importance of retreats. Is there anybody here who has done retreats in the past? And by retreats, it could be, there's on the weekend, there's a day retreat. You go there for the day, up to 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, 10 days. There's 2 or 3 month retreats. Depending on the tradition and the level, there's a wide variety of lengths when it comes to retreats. Hey, that's a retreat, yeah. I am looking forward to eventually doing that. 6 months of solitude. That sounds nice. That sounds like a good time. Yeah. Well, every monk, everybody I've talked to who's done that, every meditator, it's never oh my God, it was horrible, I was lonely and bored and all this kind of stuff. It was always like it was a great experience. And that's being somebody who enjoys being by himself and meditating and stuff like that to begin with. I'm looking forward to it. But for those of you who do know me, you might know that I have been accepted to go into the monastery, Bhavana Society, to look towards becoming a monk. It's a process. It's not one of those things where you go and then you become a monk and then you just stay there. It's a fairly long process. So the beginning part of that will hopefully start in September. It was supposed to start a little earlier, but they made some decisions, and then they made more decisions, and now it's September until things. The great thing that this experience has taught me is something that I've pretty much already know, but sometimes you need a little reminder, and that is that all things are uncertain. Never put your expectations on one thing happening, because when you do, that's when life laughs at you and says, "Ha! Well, guess what? Now this is going to happen." It's almost comical, really. But that's just an aside. So I wanted to talk about the importance of retreats, and then talk about a little bit about what they are, what the purpose of and give a little glimpse of what a retreat might be like. I have done, there's a variety of different types of Buddhism. So there's a variety of different types of retreats. I have done Mahayana and Theravada retreats. Out of the 6 or 7 that I've done, one of them was Mahayana, my very, very first one. So I do have a little bit of experience in different tradition retreat, but really it was kind of very similar in many ways. So what is a retreat? What's the point? What's the purpose of doing a retreat? If you're lucky enough to have been able to start developing a consistent daily meditation practice, and that's a hard thing. That's a really hard thing. I remember it took me quite a while before it kind of just clicked to the point where I pretty much consistently meditate every day. That doesn't mean I meditate every day, because things change, different things happen, but fairly consistently I meditate every day. So that is really kind of like the first step, right? That's a first step into things, because then even when you meditate every day, you're still kind of in the same, you're still gaining insight, but you're still in the same schedule of daily life. You're still working with kids and work and spouse and all of these things that we are dealing with in our daily life. And sometimes, even, it's funny that even at the monastery, if you become a monk, you're still, the place where I go is that there's some types of monastics and some types of place where you kind of go and you're basically free the whole day to make your own schedule and to do this. And the place where I'm going, it's very regimented. So you can, have all these specific things, and even that, even at probably being a monk at the monastery, you can be into the daily life. And so I'll meditate, X amount of hours a day, or however long, and then, I have to do this, I have to do that, etc. When you go on a retreat, it's a whole different world. Most retreats, in my experience, in the Mahayana and the Theravada, have what's called noble silence. People who kind of don't know Buddhism, they don't understand things, like when they hear, like, you're going to be a monk, that means you take a vow of silence. That's not true for most Christian monks, and it's not true for most all Buddhist monks. There's no such thing as a vow of silence, as far as I know, in Buddhism. I'm sure it probably does exist somewhere in Buddhism, but as far as I know, I've never heard of such a thing. But during a retreat, you want to have this called noble silence. And what noble silence is however long you're there, unless it's an emergency or during a work period you need to communicate some way or another, however long you're there, you are to not talk. And for a lot of people, that's tough. Could you imagine going 7 days without talking? That's a and of course, if you're by yourself for 7 days, obviously you don't talk, unless you're talking to yourself. But imagine being with 30 other people, and for 7 days you don't talk. It's an interesting experience. The first my first 7-day retreat, I can remember, you have jobs at the monastery or at the retreat. There's different jobs that you do, and one of my jobs was to set up the tables for breakfast and lunch. And I had the job with this other person. Well, for 7 days, we set up the tables and we took them down every day. We never said a word to each other. We went through this experience of going through the meditation and also doing this work every day, where we didn't have to say one thing. We were able to perform the job, to get everything set up, to take everything down. And it was a weird experience after 7 days to say, "Oh, hi. How are you doing?" So after 7 days, after it's all done, you get to talk, and it's like, and then you get to talk and get to know them. It was a very interesting experience. But what I like about Noble Silence is that it forces you to be alone with your own ego. And if you haven't gotten to the point in your meditation practice where you start to kind of be able to observe your ego and have a depersonalization of it, like seeing it as not you, then if you're able to start to observe it and to see what it does and what it thinks and all this kind of stuff, it's very, very interesting. Because when you're in noble silence, your mind, your ego, you want to do something, you want to say something, but you can't. And so you're being thrown. It's like being thrown on a desert island with yourself, but it's like another person. It's hard to explain experience. It's when you start to be able to see your mind and see how it works. I had an interesting experience at a retreat. It was a metta retreat, actually. Metta, developing, the basic translation is loving kindness, but it's not really a right translation. Developing this metta for all beings and all this. 7 days of metta. You'd think, bliss. It wasn't. It was rough. Most people think like going on a meditation retreat is like a vacation. It is not. It is tough. Going on a meditation retreat is like going to boot camp for your mind. There's all kinds of struggles and all kinds of obstacle courses and all kinds of things. It's not easy. The meditation is not easy. It is not. But I remember being in this metta meditation, and the monk, who will most likely be one of my teachers, I haven't told him this story yet, but I think he'll laugh when I do. He was doing a guided metta meditation, and for some reason, I don't know why, to this day still, but guided meditations bring up agitation in me. I don't know why. So agitation's building, and during this meditation, all of a sudden, I have this vision in my head, my ego, of getting up and punching out the monk. And I wasn't even shocked really at the point. I was a little bit shocked, but when you come to know your own ego, you can just, it's like watching the best TV channel there is, because it's non-stop comedy 24 hours a day. And me being able to take that and to not have any guilt or any negativity about that that image in my mind is a testament to the actual practice. And I wouldn't be in my practice the way I am today if it weren't for these retreats. And the last 2 years I've probably done about 5 or 6. On average 7 days. So they're on average a week retreats. And the reason why retreat is important is because you go from meditating whatever 20 minutes a day, 40 minutes a day, an hour a day, to meditating and trying to be mindful 6+ hours a day. That's a huge jump. It is a huge jump. I remember the first couple of retreats I had, there was so much negativity in the beginning. So much struggle. So much pains, the bodily pains. Because when you meditate for a half hour or whatever, you're not having a lot of the soreness and all the things that you're going to get. But when you meditate for 6 hours a day, you feel it. It's rough. It's not easy. Especially somebody like me who has trouble doing sitting meditation. I've always struggled with it. So for me it was even worse. But the funny part about it is the insight you gain is almost inversely proportional to the amount of suffering you do at the retreat. Every retreat I've ever done has ended with amazing insights that I learned by going through that tough time. So the importance of retreats is getting you out of that normal loop, that normal daily loop, immersing you into a meditative experience where you can learn to be mindful in everything that you do. And you come to find that being mindful in everything that you do can be really exhausting. Because you're always trying to be mindful. In the beginning, you're always trying to be mindful. Mindful. But as you progress, it becomes like second nature. It becomes like an autopilot. And you don't use any energy at all. Being mindful starts to become the actual first nature, or second nature, however you want to call it. And that's the importance of doing these retreats. And the longer you're able to do it, the more you're able to get into that habit of being able to observe your mind and be mindful daily. Welcome to the club. On a good day, on a really good day, I can say of all the years that I've been meditating, and I'll never at this point, I can't claim to be any kind of a really advanced meditator. I can't claim to have had experienced any of the jhanas or anything like that. So for me, sitting meditation is still a struggle. Actually, ironically enough, most of the insights that I've gained through my meditation have occurred through walking meditation, which is a whole topic in and of itself. Walking meditation has been a very big boost to my practice, and I learned walking meditation in my very first retreat. It was a Mahayana monastery, but one of the people there teaching for the retreat was a Sri Lankan Theravada monk. And from that monk, Venerable Dhammajiva, I learned how to do walking meditation. And it changed everything. Absolutely changed everything. So that's another important thing about going to a retreat. Learning techniques, learning how to meditate, learning how to be mindful. At Bhavana Society, each retreat is specific. There's a metta retreat. There's a mindfulness retreat, which teaches you the foundations of samatha and vipassana meditation. There is a mindfulness of death retreat. There's all the different aspects per retreat. I only fall asleep if I'm sitting in a chair, and also that's also how I can get deeper meditations while sitting. I still struggle very much, like sitting cross-legged or sitting on a cushion, to get any kind of level of stillness. But when I sit on a chair, it's when I'm not going nuts worrying about my legs and positioning and all this stuff, it's amazing how quickly my mind just goes. It just stops, and I can just get into deeper levels of calm. But each of us, we all have our own specific quirks when it comes to meditation. And that's another important thing too, is most of us, like I said before, probably don't have that daily sangha. Going to a retreat gives you a community. You are doing this with 20, 30 other people. You are learning from monastics or lay teachers or whoever, wherever you're going. And so you're getting that education, you're getting that experience. Many people say that when they are meditating, when they are doing a retreat with other people, they feel like an energy. They gain energy, they get energy from being with other people. I've yet to feel that. I actually feel my energy when I'm alone by myself in the woods under a tree. So, but each of us are all different, right? So so it's important to see if that works for you. The main gist that I want to talk, to get across when doing retreat is not to expect it to be easy, but expect it. Actually, you shouldn't expect anything really, because when you expect something, that's when it doesn't happen. But so don't expect it to be easy, and you don't also have to expect it that you're going to get an insight or it's going to be amazing or this or that. It won't necessarily be that, but it can be. And the more you learn to let go, the more you learn to be just at peace and to not worry about things too much, the easier it gets and the more insights can come. When I talk about insights, it's been my experience that insights are not necessarily these things like you're meditating and you're being mindful, and then all of a sudden it's like what do you watch, a cartoon or whatever, or something like, and a big light bulb appears over the person's head or something like that. It's not it's been my experience, it's not necessarily like that. It's interesting in that insights seem to kind of culminate. They kind of come in very small bits, and they come on their own accord. You can never try to gain insight. Insight comes on its own. What you do is you create the atmosphere for the insight to occur. It's like a bird making a nest for its little, hatchlings who put the eggs in and stuff like that. Creating the conditions for those eggs to turn to become baby birds. Your job is not to gain insight, but to create the conditions for insight. And going to retreats helps you be able to do that. The Buddha uses a lot of grand similes. About a lot of times he'll use the similes when it comes to long distances of time. He'll talk about you could have a spoon and take a spoonful of a mountain every 100 years, and even when that mountain is done, the aeon is not complete. All these kind of things. He uses these grand similes. And in the same vein, in observing how insights come, I came up with the simile of the iceberg. And that simile goes like this. If you know an iceberg, icebergs are huge. Icebergs are gigantic. 75% of the iceberg is under the water that you don't even see it. And I imagine myself at this iceberg with like a little ice pick. And I'm just taking the ice pick to the iceberg. And little pieces, little shards of ice, little pieces are coming off. And that's like what you're doing. That's what the meditation practice is. You are gradually taking off all these little pieces. And gradually these pieces come together. They form these big piles. And this is your insight growing. But it happens very gradually, very small. And you're just hacking away. And if you follow, if you buy into the whole being reborn and learning, the suttas say that the Buddha over many lifetimes perfected the conditions for awakening in his final life. So you're going to spend many lifetimes chipping away at that big iceberg. And eventually, there's no more iceberg left. There's just a big pile of insight. It'll take quite a while, though. So, going on these retreats is teaching you to create that, teaching you how to create those conditions for insight to occur. You are learning from teachers who have been there. Right? You're practicing with fellow Dhamma brothers and sisters. A lot of people take a lot of support from that. It's very helpful in their practice as opposed to meditating in their home. So there's a lot of all these different reasons to go on a retreat. One of the things that I love about retreats, at least in the Theravada tradition and in some other traditions, but usually 9 times out of 10, if it's a monastery-based retreat, you're not paying for anything. I know there's some places, there's some retreats that you're spending $1,000+. I'd never do that. Dhamma should be free. And obviously I understand that some people have, there's overheads and stuff like that. So, it kind of makes sense. But for me, when I go to Bhavana Society and I stay there for 7 days and I'm fed for 7 days and I am given these teachings for 7 days and I have a place to stay for 7 days, all for nothing. that's an amazing and inspiring thing for me. That inspires me to donate and to know that that this place exists totally free of charge for me to learn Dhamma. And you know what? If I don't help this place out, if nobody helped this place out, it wouldn't exist anymore. So that's a good reason for me to want to keep this place going, so that you don't have to worry about they are free by voluntary Vipassana centers. I don't know. I mean, Vipassana is interesting that it is part of what the Buddha taught, but as far as I've never been to a Goenka retreat. I've never been to a specific Vipassana retreat. But it seems that in a way it's missing the point. And this is my issue actually with a lot of different, with secular Buddhism and with a lot of different ways of people see, people see something like Theravada Buddhism. And you know what? There is a lot of rite and ritual. There is a lot of cultural stuff to Theravada. There is. I can't deny that. And there is the rebirth. And there is the karma and all of that stuff. But some people do what I call, what do they say, throw the baby away with the bathwater, right? And it does a disservice. You don't have to believe in karma or rebirth, all of these things. You don't have to be hung up on these. And people get hung up on these aspects, of which the Buddha said in the Kalama Suttas. Kalama Sutta is one of the most famous suttas, widely quoted, widely misquoted, misread, and misunderstood. This is the sutta where the Buddha says, "Do not go by reports. Do not go by what is, what is accepted by all. Do not go by what your teacher says, etc., etc., etc." To me, the most important part of that sutta is the part that nobody even ever explains, or even talks about, and that's towards the end, where the Buddha says, "There are these assurances that you gain from this practice." And one of those assurances is, if there is nothing after this life, doing this practice right now, in this life, you live in peace and happiness. You live skillfully and beneficially for yourself and all beings. That's important. So that is one of those things that you don't normally see that the Buddha says, right? So you don't even have to worry about the karma and rebirth. You don't have, if that's something you're hung up on, don't waste time being hung up on it. But what you want to, the Buddha talks about many in his, when he's talking about his meditation, the methods. The method includes generosity. It includes giving. It includes trying to live a more moral life, performing actions that are skillful, that are beneficial to yourself and others. And that's even before the meditation. And then when you're talking about the meditation, the Buddha taught not only Vipassana, but he taught a type of meditation that was common at the time. This was not a meditation that he made up or that he found. He learned this from other teachers. That's samatha. That's the serenity meditation, the concentration meditation. And these two meditations go together. Teachers like Ajahn Brahm, teachers like somebody who I hope will be my preceptor, Bhante G, who's a very famous monastic. He writes a lot of books. He also teaches the same way. He teaches both together. They complement each other. They are together. So that samatha, vipassana. But also, the Buddha also taught metta. Metta is part of that as well. So these three practices are very important. And I think when you're just dealing with Vipassana, you're missing out on it. You're missing out on, because Bhante Silananda talks about metta being a cooling balm. He talks of, and this is what it is described as in the old suttas. Metta, when you just do Vipassana, or you're just doing samatha, that can be very dry. It can be very monotonous. But metta, as part of that, adds a different dimension. And so you're not just doing the same specific meditation day in and day out. You're doing all these different practices that complement each other and that go together. The Buddha taught this together. And that's important. So for me, personally, I mean, I'm not a scholar of this. I'm not a master, so you really take my opinion with a big grain of salt. But I wouldn't just do a Vipassana retreat for me personally, because I just don't see a benefit to it. But many people do. If people didn't see a benefit to it, it wouldn't be as big as it is. And Goenka had a lot of good things to say. I mean, I've never been to any of his retreats, but I've read some of his stuff. I've seen his quotes. I don't think that he was anti-Buddhist or not Buddhist. I think what he taught, it seemed to be Buddhism. But it didn't, as far as I know, it doesn't seem to be the whole of it, the whole of what the Buddha taught. So, I don't know. Again, take every teacher's, whatever a teacher says, you do want to take it and examine it and analyze it. I love Bhante Ji. The very first time I heard him speak live, I had seen him in YouTube videos, and read some of his books and stuff before that. But the very first time, this is this 85-year-old monk. He's been a monk since he was 12. Very wise, very, full of life. Likes to smile. Say funny things. And he did his talk, and afterwards he says, about the questions, and he says, you can ask any question you like, but I can't guarantee an answer. And this is from a wise old monk, right? So that's how, it's like, I was like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. Just immediately, right off the bat, somebody says, I don't know everything. So you can ask if you like, but I can't guarantee an answer. I love that. And so I can never guarantee an answer. If he can't, I sure as heck can't. That's for sure. So, okay. Let's see. I went off on a little sideways here. But really, if it's voluntary donation, and if it's beneficial to somebody, I don't have any issues with it. And that goes for anything. I mean, anything that is beneficial and is skillful, regardless of what ism it's from, regardless of what tradition it's from, that's a good thing to do. If you know for yourself that this is beneficial, it is approved by the wise, it is beneficial and skillful, then do it. If you know that it is unskillful, if the wise disapprove, then yeah, don't do it. So, okay. Yes. Well, I think in Bhante Ji, I read a thing from Bhante Ji. He wrote it probably about 10 years ago about Bhavana Society and how he created his vision behind it and all that. And his vision was that it was always going to be free. That people trust when it's free. Americans are different. He said one of the things that he learned is that Americans, if you're not telling them what the price is, they're skeptical. And in a way, that's kind of true. If it's like, if there's no, what's the price? What's the cost? Nothing. And they think that there's, that there's some kind of scheme behind it. So it's kind of, it's kind of an interesting dynamic in that. But look at, he did, and I mean, I don't know the specifics. I mean, but it is one of the most famous and widely attended forest monasteries in the country. Probably, I don't know about the world, but definitely in the country. And he keeps it going. There's enough people that find value in it to keep it going. And that's why I like Ajahn Brahm. He says when he first started every major meditation center has very similar beginnings. It's interesting. If you listen to Bhante G, Ajahn Brahm, when they talk about their beginnings, it's always like one or two monks, and there's like a little hut, and they don't have heat, they don't have this, they don't have that. But gradually, things are built. Gradually, people come. Gradually, it's over 20 or 30 years. All of a sudden, now you have this big, well-attended, well-taken care for place. Where in the beginning, it was 2 or 3 people. Toughing it out on the land. And it's interesting. So I mean, if you look at, I often wonder. I come on and I look at the Buddhist Center right here. Right, you look under the thing. It says, "Help keep this wonderful place going. Please donate." 33,000 needed a month. It's the 10th, and there's 3,300. That's actually pretty good. I've seen it a lot worse. So I don't think that there's 33,000 in donations given a month, and that's why we have the store, and you can rent houses and all these kind of things. And I'm assuming that that's been enough to keep the place going all this time. I don't know a lot about the specifics of the inner workings of the Buddha Center. But so if you, what's from that old movie, Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. So that's why, for me, it's important to support a place like this too. Because when you get into Buddhism, when you start to understand how it's changed your life, and you see that the potential to change so many other people's lives, what better, it's good to donate to, support organizations and support this cause, support that cause. It's a very good thing to do. But through my experience and through my practice, I've come to see that really the best place to donate to is to a place like Bhavana Society, with rightly practicing monks that teaches the Dhamma for free. Dhamma is the best gift. No gift exceeds Dhamma. And I fully, 100% agree with that. It's something that I've come to understand and to agree with. So, it's so important. It helps so many people. So if there is a place that you do frequent, even if it's, Bhavana Society is 5 hours from me. I see it once every 2 to 3 months. I try to get there every quarter. Sometimes I'm able to, sometimes I'm not. But I know it's there in the woods over there. And hopefully soon it'll be my home. Hopefully but when I'm gone, I hope there's somebody, if I become a monk and I stay a monk, I hope there's other people like me who understand Dhamma and understand its power and do want to continue to donate. And they want to come to retreats and learn. And I'll be there. You know, so kind of a little bit off topic, but not necessarily. If it weren't for these places, there would be no retreats. At least no led retreats. As Tetson, gave an example of his own doing a personal retreat. It's not necessarily something that you have to do at a retreat center. It is something that you could do. You could say, okay, well, guess what? Saturday is going to be my own personal retreat in my house. Husband or wife, you take the kids out, go somewhere for the day, so I can, have my retreat in my house. Something like that. People do that. Because, sometimes it's not available to go. Some people can't drive 5 hours for Dhamma, Or, they can't, and there's nobody near them. So that's the only way they're able to do it. I'd like to take a retreat day where I just watch Ajahn Brahm videos all day. I think that would be a good retreat. One of these days I should do that. But, so, okay. I usually listen to a Dhamma talk every morning. It's just been one of those things that has become a habit. Listen to Ajahn Brahm or one of the other monks that I like to listen to every day. Habit is important. So I guess that's pretty much it. Basically just, one of those things where wanting to support and speak about the importance of retreats. If you've never done a retreat, you definitely want to start small. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It's tough. And especially if you're not used to sitting, or meditating 5 or 6 hours a day. It will be tough, but it will also be rewarding. That's the importance of a retreat. All of the things that I spoke about, community, having teachers who have been there, who know, to be able to teach, to talk to you. Like my last retreat, I was lucky. It was a mindfulness of death retreat, which wasn't too, it wasn't really all that insightful for me. It wasn't a big, amazing thing for me. But I've experienced enough death, and I know enough about death that it was a great retreat. It was good. But the one thing that I was lucky enough to do is I was able to like I said this whole hour, I have issues with sitting meditation and posture and all this stuff. And the person leading the death meditation is somebody who I think is pretty much the best monk out there to talk about proper meditation posture and yoga and getting the body able to stay in these positions and all of this stuff. That's Bhante Rahula. And I was lucky enough to have him be the person teaching the retreat. So, usually during a retreat you have interviews. If there's anything that comes up, any questions, anything, you get to speak with whoever's leading the retreat for like 10-15 minutes. So, in my 10 or 15 minutes, I didn't need to ask him a question about death. I've had enough experiences about death, so that wasn't what I needed today. I seized the day. I said, you know what? He's here. I want to ask him about my posture. And I said, yeah, I wanted to talk about my posture. And he goes, yeah, it's horrible. There's this monk, he's obviously, I was sitting mostly in the front row the whole retreat. And so he saw my posture and he goes, yeah, it's pretty bad. It's horrible. He says, yeah, it's horrible. So I was able to kind of just speak with him for 15 minutes. He gave me some tips. I meditate on a bench now, like one of those bench that you put it over your legs and you sit back on it and stuff like that. So that's what I have been practicing. And it does help a little bit, but it brings up its own issues with my legs as well. So I have been told by monks that there are monks who have become enlightened just by walking meditation, which is very, very tempting. You know what's funny? I've had some very comfortable, stable meditations on a rock. To be in all honest with you, I actually do. I'm actually my sits bones. If you know a yoga, you know the sits bones, those two bones on your butt. You get those nice and stable. I've been able to get those nice and stable on concrete and sit on concrete and stuff like that. And be able to meditate. I listen. I've tried it all. I've tried one cushion. I've tried two cushions. I've tried three cushions. I've tried cushions on my knees. I've tried all of these things. I have tried them all. And at one point, I got so frustrated. I was, you know what? I'm gonna try no frickin' cushions. And while no cushions got me, I don't think so. Well, I don't know if I have. But while no cushions did not get me to, my main issue is not having, and this is what Bhante Rahula told me, the key is to getting your knees below the hips. Exactly. That is the key. He says that is, if you cannot do that, you will not have a stable posture. That's what he said. So, sitting on a it's tough. It's tough. But it's hard at my weight. It's not easy. Yeah. And I was a big person who meditated. The irony is, I thought, I lost all this weight. My foot's not gonna fall asleep. I'm not gonna have these issues, that issues, blah blah blah. I'm gonna be a skinny meditator. Same crap. Same stuff. Losing 200 pounds did not make sitting meditation much easier. I can guarantee you that. It's very interesting phenomena. Very interesting. It's just one of those things where, you're always trying to, if only I could do this would work. If only I could do that, this would work, right? And how many times do we do that in life for about everything? If only this, I'd be happy. If only that, I'd be happy. And then that happens and it's like, oh crap, nothing changed. Dang it. But then, if only that, I'd be happy. Only that, I'd be able to do it. If I could only do this, then I'd be able to be in lotus position, and I'd be able to sit still for 9 hours, and I'd get all the jhanas, and I think the more I practice, the more I think that it's really not about the positions. But having the stability is important. That's why it is a lot easier to, when I sit in a chair and the stability's there, and then the calm comes. So I don't know, it's tough, it's not easy, and I don't claim to have many of the answers. I'm still struggling and searching myself. Bhante G, who again, he's from Sri Lanka, he's been a monk all his life since he was 11 years old. He didn't even he's 85 now. He didn't even try to do lotus position until he was 65. And even then, he says that, most people I know who can do the lotus position, which is, widely acclaimed as the most stable and best position for meditation, then, even they say you can only do it for so long before pains and this and that. So I'm less convinced it's about position as opposed to stability, where you can just kind of, it's like parking your body. You're able to just park your body and then just let go of it. And that's the tough thing, parking your body. I can't do lotus position. You're among the majority. So don't worry about it. The far majority of people cannot do lotus position, and you're talking about even Sri Lankans, people from Buddhist cultures. If you look historically, most of them are not sitting in chairs. They're not lounging comfortable like us American or Western types, right? So even they have that back stability. This is another thing I learned from Bhante Rahula, is that we in the West, we're so used to nice comfortable chairs, so our backs don't have the strength to hold its own. Our backs don't even have the strength to hold our own backs up for any length of time. And one of the things that I did to try to start combating that, even before I was able to, I read stuff from Bhante Rahula, and I kind of knew a little bit. I would, like, in the car, my back straight, up. Sitting in the chair, back straight, up. So I would just, in any position that I was sitting, I would try to keep that kind of position, so that my back muscles became part of that. So that's part. It's a multiple part. It's the stability, but your body has to be able to keep that stability. Your back to stay straight. Your legs to be in that whatever position it is. Like Tetsun said, a lot of the images of gurus or the Buddhas, you don't see lotus position in every, there's lots of different positions. Different cultures have their own different positions, like there's Burmese style, Thai style, etc. It's kind of like trying to find what works for you, but also not going off the deep end about it so that it frustrates you and you want to quit. Like I said, I've been there. I've done that. I've tried it all. From 5 cushions to no cushions. And it ain't easy. Whether standing, walking, or sitting, lying down, or whenever awake, one should develop this mindfulness. The Buddha taught 4 positions: standing, sitting, laying, and walking. So it is a position. It is a position that might make you fall asleep. But it is a valid position of meditation. It is one of the positions that is toughest for me. I do tend to, although if you do it in the position that the Buddha would lay, probably not. I've never actually tried it in sitting in that. What do they call the position that the Buddha laid on Tetsun? You probably know that. When he's sitting on his right side, with the one foot on top of the other. This is a lion position? Yeah, I don't know either way. Pali name or English name. I know there is a specific name for that position. Thought it was a lion something. But but you're basically, you're not lying on your back, you're lying on your side, which might be a little easier. It's almost the way the Buddha laid was very similar to, like, if you ever see like the like ancient Roman movies or whatever, like how they're lying on their sides on the couch. Very similar, a little different, but in that sort of similar vein. I actually test it out. Like sometimes I try to like fall asleep in that, or just try to. Supposedly that position has some benefits to it, although I'm not very versed in, the specifics of that.